Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Meanwhile, claims made by Boris Johnson during it could have been worse, it could have been Jeremy Hunt, during the final Conservative leadership hustings last night have been challenged by the EU. Holding up a kipper to the audience, Mr Johnson said that EU forces companies to pack their fish with an ice pillow, using it as an example of legislation we would leave behind after Brexit.
I want you to consider this kipper. This kipper, which has been presented to me just now by the editor of a national newspaper, who received it from a kipper smoker in the Isle of Man, who is utterly furious because after decades of sending kippers like this through the post, he has had his costs massively increased by Brussels bureaucrats who have insisted that each kipper must be accompanied by a plastic ice pillow. Pointless, expensive, environmentally damaging health and safety.
One or two problems with that. Let's talk about it in more detail with our Europe correspondent Mark Stone, who's standing by in Brussels for us. Where do we start, Mark?
Honestly, Kay, he's talking cobblers. It is complete nonsense to suggest that EU regulation forces smoked fish producers based either in the UK or in the Isle of Man to accompany their fish with ice pillows. It's just not true. It is, in fact, British regulation that requires producers to do that. So that is the first problem. The second problem with his analogy is that the Isle of Man is not in the European Union, nor is it in the United Kingdom. It's part of the British Isles. It has its own government. But when a producer of smoked fish in the Isle of Man wants to send products to the UK, it has to abide by UK regulation, which is why the ice pillows were in that particular product, British regulation. Incidentally, if that fish producer wanted to send its fish, or any producer sending anything to the European Union after Brexit, they would still have to abide by EU regulations. So his argument falls completely flat there, because whatever it is you're producing in the UK after Brexit, whether it be a car or a kipper, you still have to abide by the laws and regulations of the destination market. And if that's the EU, then yeah, you've got to go jump through their EU regulation. But on this instance, it wasn't EU regulation in the first place. The EU Commission was pretty quick to stand someone up to knock the story down.
The case described by Mr. Johnson falls outside the scope of the EU legislation, and it's purely a UK national competence. So I hope this is clear, and the rules must be checked with the national authorities. There are strict rules when it comes to fresh fish, but this kind of rules don't apply to processed fishery products. I'm talking about the temperature and the exact case that he was explaining.
Kay, I think the winners here are the producers of kippers in the Isle of Man. I've just had a tweet, a reply from the Isle of Man government. They say, "Thanks, Mark. The Isle of Man produces some excellent food and drink. We're delighted to see such interest in our world-renowned kippers today." They go on with a serious point to say, "At present, our producers are required to comply with the relevant Isle of Man legislation. The Isle of Man law is closely based on UK legislation and relevant EU food regulations." Clearly, in this case, as is evidenced on the British Food Safety Authority website, it is British regulation that requires ice pillows for kippers.
I don't know where to go with that, Mark, and I'm glad you're keeping a straight face on the last day of being in Brussels. Is this your last day?
Well, tomorrow, but maybe I won't be talking about kippers, but this could be the last time I'm talking about Brexit, and kippers is the subject.
And ice pillows, don't forget the ice pillows. Thanks, Mark, for now. He's got such a straight face.